How are you doing today? As I mentioned on our daily show, I wanted to make sure and tackle a subscriber question. So I put out a video yesterday talking about rent strike, basically reading a article from the Wall Street Journal talking about more and more folks trying to go on rent strike to get attention of the federal government, which I think was a logic that I didn't really understand in all fairness, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen, and it is absolutely happening. But one of the questions out of that was, hey, tell me more about this forbearance thing, because in my kind of review of that article, it seemed, again, my interpretation of the information is that the renters were feeling like, hey, the homeowners got a break. What about me? And what they renters were in reference to, most likely, again, reading between the lines, was hey, homeowners got this thing called forbearance. They got 90 days of no mortgages. I want my 90 days of free rent. That was the logic that I interpreted from that video, or that article, I should say. So then I had some questions about, okay, tell me more about forbearance. So I want to go through forbearance in kind of multiple different pieces, kind of what it is, was it used last time, what happens, all of that. The first thing I want to say about forbearance, and just get this out there quickly, is it is not forgiveness. We are going to talk about about $1,000 mortgage payment throughout this video, just for easy math, right? So let's say your April 1st payment or May 1st payment is $1,000, and it's $1,000 for 30 years, whatever it is. What would happen when you go into forbearance is, at least in the current CARES Act, is you're going to get 3 months or 90 days forbearance, no questions asked. Basically, call up your lender, right? Phone numbers on your payment stub. Say, hey, I've been impacted by this health event. I need a break. I need a pause. So, and I've heard this from many, many folks. They get that no questions asked. It takes longer to wait on hold than it does to ask for it. But don't take ease of getting it as potentially a good thing. So again, what is a forbearance? It is not forgiveness. Those $1,000 payments for 3 months are still owed. This is where it gets tricky. Initial communication coming out was most lenders would take those 3 missed payments, again, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, and they would send you a payment stub for month 4 at $4,000, right? Because you still owe month 4 under the current rules in this assumption, but they would want all of their missed payments to be made up on month 4. That's hard for people, right? If you're truly impacted by this health event, you're on unemployment, you're dipping into savings, that doesn't end well for most people. And that's really what I tried to communicate yesterday in my video about rent strikes is this is not forgiveness. This is forbearance. Those monies are still owed. So let's talk about this now, stepping back, because we've gone through a mortgage crisis before, right? A decade ago, 12 years ago, whatever, 14 years ago, whatever time frame you want to put on it. And as somebody who owned real estate investment properties through that, before that, through that, after that, I think it's important to talk about forbearance was something that was always available. It's actually in the mortgage contracts. Basically, it is communication from the borrower to the lender saying, hey, I'm in trouble. I need a pause button, right? I need 3 months to clean this up. Forbearance is something that is most often used in natural disasters, tornadoes, hurricanes, things of that ilk, where entire neighborhoods are disrupted, right? You call up your lender, you say, hey, I've been impacted by whatever, hurricane, tornado thing. We're a natural disaster for 90 days as we clean up everything and get back to going. But back in the last mortgage crisis, forbearance was, I shouldn't say never, but was almost never discussed. It wasn't an option. It was an option, but it wasn't discussed. Mortgage lenders back then were kind of programmed because they had taken all the mortgages, sliced and diced them up, and sold them on Wall Street to simply say, and I quote, "We will not talk to you until you're 90 days late." Oh, thank you. Hi, Joe from Ireland. Thank you for watching. So what happened last time is the banks, Countrywide, Bank of America, IndyMac, so on and so forth, they were telling their operators, right, when you called the number on your mortgage statement, they were programmed to say, we do not negotiate until our borrowers are 90 days late. That's what they said in the last crisis. They didn't discuss forbearance. They didn't ask for a pause. None of that. So that's what was happening last time. So that's very different than today because they don't want to see that happen again. They're like, hey, let's give them a pause button. This is a one-time event. Let's go forward. So that it is very different than last time. Again, it's not forgiveness, but let's be clear. When you ask for forbearance, you have given the lender all the power. Once you, the borrower, have reached out to your lender saying, I need help, the lender has all the power, all of it. They essentially can make decisions. They are in control. So historically speaking, they would come out, as I said earlier, take your $1,000 payments on month 4, say $4,000. Most people can't do it. Start foreclosure. Here recently, in the last week sometime, I don't remember when I read it, might have been Wednesday, there are now rules coming out saying, hey, if you are backed by Fannie or Freddie or Ginnie Mae, we are not going to do that. Because if you're really impacted by this health event, you're just delaying the inevitable of a foreclosure. But again, the lender has all the control. Right now, what they are talking about doing is they will do workouts with borrowers. Again, don't hear this as forgiveness. It will not be forgiveness. That's not what happens with mortgage debt. But what they're going to do is they're going to say, okay, what can you do? So let's just use $4,000 or $3,000, right? The missed payments. So maybe what they'll do is they'll take your $1,000 payment and they'll increase it to $1,250 until that $3,000 is paid back. That could work. They'll change the payment. There is a hope that what they'll do is they'll take those 3 months and they'll put it on the back of the loan, right? Right. If the loan was going to expire in 2039, it'll just expire 3 months later. That is a hope. But again, you don't have control. You do not have control. Yes, don't trust the banks. The banks are in control once you give them the power of being in forbearance. So there are lots of ways to work this out. Again, the banks are going to be in control. The banks have 3.5 million mortgages in forbearance, and I suspect higher. It will be in excess of 4 to 5 million mortgages in forbearance here very, very quickly. But again, the banks will be in control. That's really what you need to take from this. So there is increasing legislation, suggestions from the powers that be that you do not force make-up payments in one lump sum. I think that's just good business. But still, they're going to be in control, right? They're going to say, hey, we want our $3,000 back in 12 months. So that's an extra $250 a month. They could say, you know what, we want it back in 6 months. They could say we want it back in 5 years. You don't have any control. You don't get to whine or complain or ask for anything. The lender is going to make up the rules. And frankly, if you owe a lot on your house and the house is worth less, they're going to be more interested in helping you. They do not want that. But if you have like 50% loan on your house, banks are profit machines. And they're going to find out what houses have the most equity. And it would not shock me if they were a little more aggressive foreclosing or going to foreclosure on those houses. Forbearance is not the rosy picture that people think it is. It is, I consider, step one on a potential foreclosure, short sale, deed in lieu, which was very, very common in the last crisis. When you ask for it, you are taking a hit on your credit. Now, I know the CARES Act said no detrimental hit. That's wishful thinking. I know banks are already putting in notes that say borrower requested forbearance, so they're not directly hitting you, but it will impact you. There's no question. You will be less lendable for some time. Your credit score will be hit. But again, it is the right thing to do today. So hopefully you're hearing in this discussion that I think forbearance is the right answer. I think the last mortgage crisis, banks were stupid. Hey, we're not going to talk to you till you're 3 months late. Okay, 3 months late. Let's go. So it's very different. I'm encouraged by that. I am very happy. Yes, I do not. I have lots and lots of loans. I am not asking for it. I do. I like my 800 credit score. Thank you very much. So again, it's not the cure-all. Again, this came about from that video I did last night about those people going on rent strike. People that are going on rent strike think that homeowners are getting a break. Homeowners are not getting a break. They are one step, they're starting a very slippery slope to losing their homes. Just like people who go on rent strike. If you go on rent strike because you have some warped logic about getting the federal government involved, you are on a slippery slope that probably leads to eviction. There are agreements in place. You've got to communicate. So the one thing I can say about forbearance this time is it is forcing conversations between lenders and borrowers, which is good. Last crisis was stupid. I'm glad we're talking early. This will help some people for sure, but I think forbearance ends in a lot of short sales and foreclosures. So it is pretty interesting. So that's what we got here. It looks like there's stuff being done all over the world. Thank you for the information on Ireland. I need to go look at that. If you have an article you could send me, just leave it in the notes below or the comments below and I'll check it out. All right, everybody. Hope this makes sense. I'm going to do a video next on Class A and Class C because there is a lot of debate on that, which one does better, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, everybody. Take care of yourself. Bye.